All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Thursday. The final stop on the MSP Initiative Channel Strong Tour. We are in Maryland, just north of DC, and it's final step of our 7,000-mile journey. Let me tell you, it's a long 7,000-mile journey. Good news is that America is open, which is good. The other good news is that we made it without killing anyone or leaving anyone off at another bus stop. So that's a good sign. Today, I got two special guests with me. We have Ken Patterson from Bax 8. We have Scott Davis from Line Guard. What's going on, Scott?
Not much. Glad to be here.
Echo. We're actually inside of the RV that we traveled around America with. So trust me when I tell you, we are at the final stages of cleaning and taking all of our stuff out. So, I want to make sure that we leave the place better than we found it, hopefully. So while we're waiting for Ken to get signed in, Scott, you unfortunately you joined us on the very last day of the tour, but we had Addison from Line Guard on for week one, and we had I think two ladies that popped in North Carolina. So your team's kind of been mixing and matching as we've gone through the country. But good news is that you got a lot of people all over the country to kind of pop on as we're going along. What did your team have to say about the tour?
All the feedback that I've gotten and what I experienced today has been absolutely great. The fact that we drove over 7,000 miles combined to just travel across, hit these small MSPs, be channel strong. I think that's huge right now. It shows just great initiative. It shows just amazingness. So absolutely great things. Love what we did.
Ken, welcome online. Thanks for working through your technical difficulties over there, buddy. So Ken, this was kind of our brainchild, right? We kind of joked about it and then we kind of did it. That's good. It's a good thing. So let's start off, right? Like, did you actually think we were going to do this, or were you just joking with me?
I 100% thought we were going to do this because it's George Bardissi. So, you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth. We typically don't talk about stuff unless we really have an idea in the back of our mind that we're going to do it. So I feel like when you started joking and then I started coming back with like, all right, I originally thought you were just going to show up at my door and pick me up and bring me over to get a cheesesteak, but if we got much bigger and better, we got to, do this great tour and show up at all these parking lots. And, it was really cool being able to see people who needed help, got a little bit of help. We saw MSPs that were just happy, had smiles on their faces, just thinking, hey, man, we got back on the road. We got to see somebody outside of our office. We're not staring at screens. We had food truck drivers that were crying. We had, hotels telling us that they were at 6% occupancy. So we kind of buffered those numbers up a little bit. And then we had the MSPs, like I said, that were just really, really happy that we were going out. And, we had a guy drive, 4 to 6 hours to come see us and said, I'll do this again anytime you guys want to pop up. So that's the most important thing, right? The community was happy. We had a lot of fun. No one was trying to sell anything, but guess what? There were some people that said, oh, I didn't know George from BVoIP. I didn't know he did this. Oh, I didn't know Paul from Compliancy Group. So there was some things too that happened that was even on top of what our goal was. We made some new connections. Even MSP to MSP, a lot of MSPs got to know Matt Lee traveling the country, and he's helping a lot of those guys with their security things. So George, we can make a whole show of me talking about all the things we did, and as far as helping people during this trip. And we took a big chance, right? You definitely know how people like to be negative, and there are some people out there that were waiting for us to have a miscue, and it just didn't happen.
100%. So the cool part is that, we really didn't know what we were going to see out there, right? We started this thing in Chicago and worked through, Kansas City, Denver, Phoenix, California, across the desert, through Arizona, through New Mexico, into Texas, went basically Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, over to Tennessee, down to Orlando, up the East Coast through Atlanta, North Carolina, through Virginia here to Maryland, which is our last stop. So we kind of didn't hit the Northwest, we didn't hit the Northeast, but we pretty much hit every other part of the country. And frankly, I really thought that we were going to see a mixed bag. I did. I really thought, like I caught a little bit of the news, right? I mean, like everyone else. And I really felt like we got a completely different view of America. Number one, if you haven't traveled America by car, definitely should do it, right? It's like bucket list. But all things considered, America's really open. I'm not trying to fluff it. I mean, it really is. What we see on the news every day versus what we saw on the street, completely upside down different. I'm not saying people weren't doing it safely. I'm just saying, everybody was out and about. We had traffic everywhere. Places were open. And, it really gives me a good feeling like we're on the positive road back, right? I understand that nobody expected this thing to hit with coronavirus. And, we had to do what we had to do like every other country in the world. But, America's resilient. And I think the IT service providers out there that had to support all these industries, some got hit, some didn't. I mean, they really pivoted really quickly, and some of them have done pretty good business in a short period of time. Ken, can you recall any stories that we heard from MSPs that were actually growing as we were hitting these cities? Because I can remember a few conversations about that.
Yeah, we don't have enough time on the show, to be honest. I mean, and we talked about this before. Look, a lot of the MSPs were mature enough going into this. They were already looking at cloud solutions and pushing to the cloud. They were already trying to get their partners to do that. And we talked about this ad nauseum, George. This is the single greatest thing to happen to any one industry. Now, it's a horrible thing. Bad things happen. But also, everybody always says the same thing. Out of devastation and things like this, some good does come from it. And I don't even know the exact line on that, but just you see it. Something bad happened and it accelerated this industry more than anything else. And we talked about this before when Simon Sinek was talking about, hey, listen, we're not saying pandemics come every day. They never do, but disruption does. And we've seen how disruption has hit the economy and how the companies that pivoted did pretty damn well. The ones that didn't, I mean, let's face it, taxi cab companies, Blockbuster Video, right? These are things, and food like Uber and Uber Eats even, all these little places that took place, the people that shifted and made a pivot survived. The ones that didn't, tell me how many people on the call know what a Blockbuster is. So
I think the last one you can Airbnb.
Now Airbnb, right? The hotels, right? Exactly. The hotel industry. So those guys that didn't listen and pivot are out. They're gone, or they're barely talked about. So it's the same thing. Industry has had major disruption, but they've survived it by pivoting. And when we talk about maturity, that does not mean size. Size is not the difference. I know some people get like irritated when they hear us talk about maturity and then they're a small guy and they think, oh, well, we're not big enough. Wrong. If you're a small business and you were pushing to the cloud and you were trying to get there, you're a mature business. Oh, and by the way, security first. Has to be about the security. If you're not security first, then you're not mature. So it has nothing to do with size. And we talked to companies, and we had a guy here in Maryland today. He's like, look, I can't stay. I just wanted to come out and tell you guys, this is awesome. This is really great. He only was supposed to be here for 5 minutes. He stayed for 20. But, he wanted to get in to tell us how great it is, wanted to get in and tell us our people are great, and then had to get out. He's like a 1 or 2 man shop, but he's blowing it out of the water. He's doing great. So, yeah, George, I mean, we could talk all day about every single story was like, no, man, I'm getting killed right now. Yeah, we're not doing projects that much, but we're landing new RFPs because that's the other part of this. Larger companies that didn't handle this right now, their CEOs and their higher C-level people are looking for help, saying our guys didn't get this done. And the partners that are out there already doing their marketing by education are the ones getting called.
So Scott, I'm going to pull you back in here because when we had Addison early on the trip, she was telling us that Lion Guard internal team members were getting calls from their customers who are saying, hey, I see that you guys are going to be out here at this city at this time. And everyone's like, oh, really? We didn't know that. So I just want to, mention for whatever it's worth, your team had to have appreciated, and I'm sure everybody appreciates that a little bit of in-person connection, safely done, of course, actually helped the conversation. What do you think?
No, absolutely. And just getting out there, shaking hands is crucial, and it brings the traditional back. we were forced to everybody take this giant pivot. And to go back to what Ken was saying, there was so much, so many businesses didn't want to make that step and do that pivot to cloud services, to work from home, to remote learning, to this or that. And we ran into that situation that businesses were forced to make that change. And that's, I think, one of the things that I've heard over and over and over, going back to what Ken was saying about that pivot too, and why MSPs have been so successful during this pandemic is that the IT staffs weren't prepared for it. They needed the help. MSPs that were pushing that education were right there. And, for us on the tour, for the Lion Guard, across the country, I know we've had different people at different stops, but everywhere that I've heard, everyone that I've heard say it, they're just happy to get, elbow to elbow, some handshakes in, or elbow shakes or foot shakes, whatever they are. It's that person to person interaction so many people are missing.
So Ken,
hold on a second. Hold on, George. I'm taking your show over. Take a break. You need a break. You've been working hard on this trip. Also, what happened right before this is the relationship with Pax8 and Lion Guard.
that's true.
Right, Scott? I mean,
Yeah.
we're now best friends. Oh, let's give an ear high five from it. There we go. All right, there we go. So there's that too. Go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
Timely. Well, there was also right before this the relationship with Pax8 and Approach. You had Amy Luby out on the trip. So one of the things that was definitely a strong theme, Ken, as we were talking with these MSPs and all these parking lots, was the co-managed IT, right? There's surely before downstream IT or streamline RT, or there's a couple different names that have populated over the years. It's kind of was there. Some people kind of did it. A lot of people didn't. I think there's a huge flip now. I think the MSP partnering with the internal IT department who did not have the knowledge, the updated, technical know-how, and ultimately the capacity increase to handle all of these people who are distributed now. I feel like the industry is taking a bit of a pivot. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, first I'll give a shameless plug to Bob Coppage, right? The guy wrote the book on co-managed, literally. Go out and look for Bob Coppage's books on co-managed and read it. It's easy reading. It puts it all in perspective. But let's face it, co-managed is a way for larger businesses to leverage companies like ours, like MSPs, that know the security, they know all the new features, and by the way, they don't have access to the tools that MSPs do have. So when you can just basically on its lowest level, when you can just rent them your tools so that they can monitor and do the things they need to do, and then they take that, that's mailbox money. You're basically renting your tools out because you have access to them, and then they're able to use those tools and make themselves look better. Now, on top of that, some people are taking that steps further and loaning out their help desks, being an extension of their IT team. But the big thing is, anytime they need to make a big decision wrapped around IT, you've become an extension of that team. You become a part of those decisions because now you bring that to the table. And I'm telling you, right now is the best time for this because they found out where they were weak and found out fast when this happened, and they're looking for it. We have partners that right when this was going on with just education, and then all of a sudden, what was it, a month ago maybe, their areas started opening back up. He had 20 RFPs, and they were all co-managed, and he landed the first one. It was 1,800 seats. That's no small job, 1,800 seats. He had to roll out. He was missing our calls, George. Missing our calls, but it was for a good reason. So, I mean, it's out there. It's happening. And all he did was educate from March to now. And he's still doing it about using Teams, using things like Zoom, using things, all work from home, all the work from home stuff that they can be educated on. Money, baby, money. And then you just get you can line up and help them with those things. So, yeah, George distracted me with the money. I almost jumped over the table to go get them. But, no, seriously, co-manage is definitely another smart way, and you don't have to change your business to do it either. It's not going away from what you do. It's a piece of what you do. You have the tools and the knowledge to do this stuff. And by the way, if you can do it the easiest way, just by lending the tools out, that's where that money comes in every day, mailbox money.
100%. So let me go this way, right? We had Matt Lee on the tour from iconic. They had like a multi MSP kind of roll up into one large entity now. They're in 5 or 6 cities, I believe. So Matt Lee is like a security fanatic, for sure. And one of the things that we realized as we were going along the tour was, it was like day after day after day after day, there was one security issue after another security issue after another.
I was going to say one.
Right. I think my wife is a huge Jack Daniels fan. And when the parent company of Jack Daniels got hit, I was like, oh, Matt Lee, did you see this one? He's like, I didn't see that one. You beat me to it. So, like, one of the things that we're
Wait, as Matt would say, why are you bringing up old stuff?
It was new at the time. But anyway, and then no worries. And one of the other things that we noticed was that, a cruise liner got hit, right, with ransomware. So, Scott, let's talk about this for a second. Where are you hearing from a security standpoint, and now that Ken's back from school, from a security standpoint, what's still not happening? Why are we continuously waiting for that shoe to drop? And why is it that, people are getting forced into a bad situation before they counter? I don't understand why we're waiting for that. Scott, what do you think?
That's, I think, one of the greatest mysteries of IT consulting. There's money after the fact, but you can never find the money before the incident happens. And I really believe it comes down to education. And you look at a lot of IT guys, and educating security is one of the hardest things to do, because it's like this invisible virus we're fighting. I've used so many comparisons of COVID-19 and ransomware in just all the different videos that I've done across the board. And it's, we're fighting this invisible virus of COVID-19. We're wearing masks, we're social distancing, we shut down the economy across the world. Some of the pictures, of just how dark the earth could actually be from outer space is amazing. But, we can't do that with ransomware. Government agencies get hit with ransomware, Carnival, Jack Daniels, the list goes on and on and on. And every day there's at least 5 other breaches that comes across my desk of a new one. And these are the ones that are reporting. What's really not getting discussed is the variety of compliance laws and breach notification laws in the United States, particularly because each state has its own regulations of what merits a breach notification. And then you have compliance regulations on top of that that has different standards. So California, New York, some of the strictest, they're going to report more breaches than a state like Pennsylvania, which has the oldest breach notification laws on the book. And I yell at the legislators that I know on a daily basis, being from Pennsylvania. But it comes down to education. And I think every MSP could learn and do somewhat of a better job educating your customers on security, using the VCIO position or putting out blog posts or just communicating what threats are going on. Not everyone wants to hear every, story of everything, because, then you got the story, of, oh, I've already heard of that one. But covering the important ones, indicating how the story impacts them is crucial to an MSP selling security properly.
Well, hold on a second. Let me step in here, Scott. We're talking about the big ones. We're talking about the ones that hit the news. But I think Ken will tell you, we're seeing the smaller MSPs and their small SMB customers, sub 100 employees, getting hit. It's a low-hanging fruit for the bad guys. Remember, over half of the economy is small businesses. Ken, it's almost like taboo, right? Something happens and these people don't want their other customers to find out, because obviously it has a bad connotation to it. But in reality, it's a human being issue, right? Somebody got scammed, somebody clicked on the wrong thing, the controller wired money to somebody that they thought was their vendor, and it was some bad actor. Shouldn't really we be pivoting this story and saying, hey, listen, don't let this happen to you? I don't understand why we're not doing it.
Well, it's really easy. No one wants to say that they were the ones that got hit, so they're not sharing it. I mean, I said this 1,000 times. The numbers are pretty crazy as they are, but someone should try to figure out the ones that aren't getting reported, because it's much worse. Yeah, they're not being reported. We know that. We've seen it. The people that are brave enough. I mean, I had someone on one of my calls, right? He broke into his whole entire thing about how he got breached, why he's security first now. And he was a guy who knew his stuff, but he wasn't security first as much as he thought he was, and then realized this, but he was brave enough to share his story. Not everybody is brave enough or mature enough to say, and listen, I know it's not all about bravery. Some of us would be concerned about losing our whole entire business if we reported that or talked about it. So, you know, when I talk to people, I try not to be, you know, oh my God, you know, you should share, because I know it's hard. But we also have to think about that it's not being all shared. That means these numbers are very skewed, not in a good way, in a bad way, because, you know, we're talking about billions of dollars in ransomware. It could be inching closer to the trillions if we got every single one of these things. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know what's the answer to it. I mean, I think Scott brought up education, right? And education's great, but regulation is even high beyond that. If there was regulation, that drives education. And we all talk about that, right? Louisiana did the regulation thing. You know, Dave Sobel talked about that and had his opinions on that, and Larry Walsh had his opinions on that, right? The opinions vary, but hey, listen, if we don't jump in and before the government completely tries to take control, that's a bigger issue. And we learned yesterday that CompTIA is pulling out of lobbying. So all you guys that were, you know, want this but haven't really voiced it need to start voicing that opinion, especially to CompTIA, because they had the best lobbying position out of all of us. And I think they just had to pull out based on the lack of anybody kind of stepping up and saying, hey, we're involved. You know, we want to help out. I know that PAX 8 did get involved right before this all happened. I know that Compliancy Group was involved. George was involved. We were all talking about this and saying, okay, now we're ready. We need to do this. And now we have that big piece of news. So guys, I would reach out to CompTIA and let them know, hey, I didn't know about this, or I didn't know if I could do something about this. Let's get the word back out there, because if we lose that regulation side that we can self-regulate and set the rules for, we're going to be in trouble. The government's going to tell us what's right and wrong, and we know they don't have any idea.
Well, like, listen, politicians don't understand technology, simple as that. And quite frankly, the laws that have been put out are backwards, to be honest with you. I mean, the fact that they're trying to unwind encryption, that doesn't make sense to me at all. All right, so let's pivot for a second, because, you know, again, we just talked about so many things to so many people. One of the things that we definitely heard along the tour, and I'd like to get an opinion from both of you, is the internal staff morale, right? I mean, I think a lot of people, like, we did this so that people could come back out and at least have that interaction, right? And trust me, people were driving by hours to get to some of these spots that we were at. But we're hearing internally that the staff of these internal MSPs working remote is efficient, but that same interaction that we're missing at the events, the hallway talks, the after hours bar, you know, conversations, the cigars, like that internal team kind of glue is a little bit unwinded, right? The lunch times, the in-between talk times, the after work happy hour times. So we're starting to hear that they're getting really creative now to try and pull that back in, right? What do you think?
Well, I mean, like, you know, I keep using PAX 8, but PAX 8 has, you saw it the other day on my schedule, yoga. They have puppy time, where anybody who has their animals, they all get together and they can see each other's dogs and kind of bring some happiness into their lives. I mean, let's face it, this is a mental issue as much as it's any other issue. We had a guy from PAX 8 that, you know, we just hired. So he moved from Seattle to Denver with only his dog, moved into a brand new apartment, and then COVID hit. So he knew nobody, had nobody. Now, obviously, at least I was cognizant enough to say, holy crap. I mean, I'm going crazy at home, right? With my family and everything, but how much worse would it be if there was nobody here? So I reached out to the guy and he was like, thanks, man. Thanks. I really, really appreciate the call. And then he, you know, tells me it was actually nice because I did also maybe meet someone in the condo that he could at least talk to. You know, they get the mask on, they go out, they walk their dogs, but he had nobody here. And when I heard that, then I started pushing a little bit further and finding out that people are going stir crazy. They're not having a good time. They don't really want to go out because of the news. So they have no place to turn. So the mental issues are very real. Now think about this. You're an engineer. You're already a bit of an introvert, but you got to work and you get to see people, and that brings you a little bit of sunshine in. Where does that push you? Are you starting to become angry? I just think listen, I'm in my basement now, right? I'm a guy who's on the road 90% of the time, and now I'm in my basement. You knew I was going on this tour. You didn't have to say much. And honestly, I mean, listen, I'm not doom and gloom, so I wasn't scared, but I also know what's real. I mean, there is something out there. People are getting it, but we can do this stuff safely. So I honestly believe that there's some in-between area that we can do because we just figured that out. Find a place, have a social gathering, and just do it right. Wear masks, bump elbows, like Scott said, his elbows shake, or whatever you got to do. But we have to do something, because if we just keep saying we're going to lock it down again, we're going to shut it down, and we're going to have a bigger problem. We already had a mental health issue before this happened. No one's talking about the mental health issues that's going to happen going through this, and it's a big, big problem. So if we want to curb that and fix that, I think we got to get creative just in general. Have your offices form some parties where, yes, we're going to go out. We're not going to do it in large groups. We're going to do it in chunks, and get these people in front of each other with a mask on, with the hand sanitizer. I mean, look, we've been all over the place doing this stuff, really doing that stuff. Yeah, there you go. And by the way, we have gallons of that on the bus. And we're proving it. We've been on this bus for 3 weeks now. Nobody's gotten sick yet. It's almost over. No one's gotten sick. Everybody's been being pretty smart. We do have a germaphobe on the bus with us, so that helps a little bit too. And he wasn't worried at all. So it can be done. If anything we wanted to prove with this is, one, our community is fantastic. We pull together when we need to. And all we did on this trip, not one person was making a sale. Nobody was pushing sales. This truly was the Good Vibes tour. We wanted to make things better. I had no idea that the food banks would be ecstatic with what we're bringing them from the food that we're bringing in and having as a price of admission. I had no idea a food truck driver would cry talking about what this did for his business. Just that small little thing, just a small little light of sunshine in the middle of everybody's doom and gloom. So I think if you can do that for your employees and pull something together and get them out and do it in a be socially aware, I think it works. And anybody that wants to, challenge me on that, I'll gladly talk about it, because if you don't, you're going to have a bigger mental health issue.
100%. So Scott, your line guard team's very distributed right now, right? And so you got what, north of 50 employees in line guard. What have you guys been doing to break the mental kind of at-home stuckness?
Yeah, I think Ken hit it. It's all about culture. And Lion Guard had a great culture before I joined Lion Guard. I actually spent 6 years in the MSP space before joining Lion Guard about a month and a half ago. But the culture is everything. And if you try to jump into a whole bunch of Zoom meetings and the culture sucked before, you're going to have a hard time convincing people to jump in for those doggy chats or those yogas. And that's just the reality. But going in, Lion Guard's culture is unbelievable. We do education Wednesdays, and most of the team shows up every Wednesday for that education session. We do, the puppy chats. We do Wednesday evening yogas. There's a couple, happy hours, through the week. So, the energy is awesome. It's that, I really don't feel the anxiety, even though my office, again, just like Ken said, is the basement at my house. I have no windows in the basement office. In fact, it's a studio. I got the green screen behind me. So every time I turn around, I just see big green screen. It's, the anxiety can kill you, and you have to be able to jump out, shake elbows, or, even if it's just that virtual high five, just getting out there, making sure when you are doing the Zoom meetings, force your team to turn the cameras on. I've joined so many MSPs where they're like, oh no, we never use the cameras. You're not gaining the personal touch. You're not gaining that. No one sees you from the waist down. Keep the jammies on the bottom. It's cool. No one cares.
So
unless you take the laptop with you.
Yeah, be careful on the laptop in the bathroom for sure. Ken, you brought it up earlier. I want to double down on this. I mean, we had a good amount of food truck vendors come out to each spot. We had a good amount of certain auxiliary vendors that were dropping stuff off to us as we were going along the tour. We found a lot of people, the few restaurants that we did right on the outside. They were just thrilled to have people, right? You know, in some areas were a little busier than others. I mean, I was surprised how busy New Mexico was on the way out. Like, we were pretty busy. But at the end of the day, one of the things that is a common theme is that people are hungry to be back at work, right? Like, I really got that feeling. And I'm wondering, you know, how many people now from an MSP standpoint are on the street because maybe the PPP money's out, the idle money's out. Like some of these MSPs had to downsize in certain instances. Like, I'm wondering how many of those people are in a position to go back to work sooner rather than later, especially now that the government additional programs are wrapped up.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have my crystal ball, right? But yeah, you talk about some places. I mean, you want to talk about busy. You know, if we were going to actually eat someplace, we always were looking for places that had outdoor. And we were trying to be smart about things. If they didn't have an outdoor, if they had an open wall. And so, yeah, I know where George is going with this. We went to a place where it was empty. It was just us in a booth, like with an open wall. And then we were noticing all these people going up the stairs. And I'm telling you right now, there was a full-on rager at the club upstairs. They had a live band. I mean, honestly, that wasn't for us. I don't think we're going to go body to body yet and, you know, be in a club. It was all young people, but they were hungry to get the heck out and do their thing, right? We were just like, wow, that might be a little bit too much, just a little bit. But yes, people are going crazy for that. As far as MSPs trying to go back, I mean, look, there's a lot of things, a lot of variables. I mean, if they go the other way and start shutting stuff down again, that's not going to help anybody. Those are the guys that are going to get affected. I do believe that the MSPs are going to have more opportunity to, like we talked about, I haven't seen too many MSPs that are in that position. And I don't want to speak for all of them because I know there could be special circumstances they could be in. But I mean, we have partners in Vegas, two very, people we know very well, probably be on the call with us later, who said, look, we lost big chunks of our business. The restaurants, the casinos aren't nowhere near where they're going to be. I mean, Vegas isn't going to be open for a while, fully open, yet their businesses are still thriving because they do so many things in the cloud that have nothing to do with that part of the in-person stuff. I'm pretty sure from a standpoint of MSPs having that issue, there's many different ways to kind of line up and get help. And this community is obviously very tight. Now, if they're not too busy being worried about their competition, they'll definitely get it. If they're worried about their competition, that's where you're going to have the problem. I mean, look, the way I used to say it when I was in the MSP business, when I was busy blaming everything else, to stop and take a second and realize what really is you and what really is the situation and what can you change. And I feel like that will pull anybody out of this particular situation, because I joke about starting an MSP, and I saw some people on your show say I would never recommend being an MSP. I'll tell you that's BS. It is a tough job, but anything worth doing is hard. But I'll tell you right now, I could open an MSP right now, go get the resources that are available out there right now, attack it. We talk about mailbox money. What's easier than pulling someone in, letting them share your resources, doing nothing but collecting money? So there are ways to do this. The negativity stuff, I don't get that. You know me as a positive person. I'm not the glum guy that there's always a way to make stuff work. If it's not working, look in the mirror and see if it's really the situation or if it's something that you could change. There are ways to pivot, as we all discussed earlier, and do some other things. Go out and ask questions, get help, talk to people like George, talk to people like Scott, go out to the industry. The industry is very willing to help. Look, Lion Guard, Scott, I'll give you as an example. I'm pretty sure that if anybody came to you guys and said, I'm struggling and I need help, the first thing you're going to ask isn't going to be, are you a partner? It's going to be, what do you need? How can we help? That's the difference between most of the people in this community, most of the businesses in this community, is they know anybody that gets help in this community, whether they're a partner or not, helps the community as a whole, which indirectly helps us all. That's why you need to go out and seek that help and talk to people who are successful. And I think that's a big piece of it, George. Like, forget about, who's going to come out.
100%, Ken. I mean, but I think part of the problem, and we're still kind of seeing this, I thought this was a 10 years ago, 5 year ago thing was gone. We're still seeing a lot of castle mentality.
Oh, absolutely.
But the amount of people that we saw on this trip, like we saw it literally happening in the parking lots, where this MSP is like, I'm really struggling with Azure. I'm trying to figure out how to get it to work. This guy's like, oh yeah, we've already been down that road. And these literally guys are partnering in the parking lot. Like the MSP to MSP partnerships. Now, granted, it has to be done right. It has to be, there has to be an agreement in place. Everybody's protected. But they're happening. And like, I don't understand why this wasn't happening more sooner. Can anybody explain that?
Stubbornness.
I'd agree, stubbornness. You know, everybody has an axe to grind with somebody or how someone did something to them. You know, it's all about community. And at the end of the day, if as a community we all can come together and protect our clients, then that's a win for everybody. You know, everyone, you know, we all have access to the same suite of tools. You know, the same ingredients go into the cake. You know, how you're going to win your customers is, you know, how you mix it and your customer service. So just, yeah, get rid of the stubbornness. Let's work together.
So one of the other things I was muted. One of the things that has definitely come up on the conversations on this trip has been customer experience, right? Like everyone, you're hearing on the other side of the equation, right? You have castle mentality on this side. And on the other side of the equation, you have everybody has the same tools. Everybody has the same stack. But then, like, you talk to a guy like Matt Lee, who is, like, really granular about his business. And he'll tell you it's not just about the technology. It's about the people. It's about the process, right? And I feel like that, like, we hear documentation. I feel like it's maybe overdone to a degree in terms of how it's defined, right? But I feel like the people in the process part's kind of getting lost. And that's really the differentiator between like a really high running profitable MSP and somebody who's struggling to get by. So like, what are some of the things, Ken, because we had a lot of conversations, right? What are some of the things that we've heard on this trip where people are pivoting now to try and make that end customer experience better? Because they don't care how many tickets, they don't care how many phone calls, they don't care how many, they don't really care what's underneath the hood to say. Like, yeah, there's certain brands, like we said in the past with Dave Sobel, he's like, yeah, Microsoft, Apple, right? There's certain brands that are household names, right. But after the big guys, they don't pay attention because they don't know and they don't care to know, right? So what are these guys doing to make that experience better?
Well, I mean, look, it all starts from the very beginning. MSPs are mostly not business people. First thing, right? X-Techs, they're, you know, whatever it may be. And even the ones that are business, they're more like the IBM way. They didn't come from a background of sharing and, you know, not being competitive, but being cooperative. So we're already kind of, I don't want to say screwed in that area, right? Because the MSP comes from that background where everybody's like, oh, no, I'm going to blow this guy out of the water and I'm going to shoot this guy down. And then we get into, well, how do we get people to buy into security? And that's the wrong mindset, because we shouldn't be selling security. We should be at a point where we're like doctors, right? Your doctor tells you, and this is another Matt Lee-ism, right? Your doctor tells you that you know, your arm's broken, or in my case, hey, dude, you're fat. You need to, you know, lose some weight. You're going to drop of a heart attack. I don't go, you know, I don't think that's right. You know, why don't you just toss me a couple of these pills and I'll be all right, right? We don't have that. In our industry, we're considered like used car salesmen. They're always like, the partners are like, I don't want to do that. I want to take this piece. To Paul Redding's point, right? It's like when you're building a house, does the customer come in and say, you know, I don't need those boards. I don't need those nails, right? And then to Paul's point, it's like, okay, man, what do you like better? Snakes, bugs, or rain? You know, where do you want the holes, right? So that's the mentality, right? We don't bring that to the table from the beginning. Now everybody's struggling to figure out what's the best way to do it. And here's your simple answer. Keep it simple, stupid. That's it. Just forget about the selling part of it and let them know we're providing something that they need. We're not selling them a car with buttons and shit that's not going to work, things that are falling apart. We're actually giving we have something they need. So how do we do that? How do we separate ourselves? Okay, how do you pick your doctor? When you go out and pick your doctor, how do you pick your doctor? Is it, you know, are you gonna go in there and say, oh, you know what, you're too high, I'm not gonna come see you? No, you go in there because they have warm hands. I mean, I don't know, you know what I mean? You pick your doctor based on how they treat you, right? How they make you feel. And we all know it's all about emotion in this business, right? You make someone feel good, they're gonna trust you with everything. So that experience comes from different places. But here's the thing: if you're genuine, you believe in what you do, and you show them that it's value you're delivering, right? We're not delivering products; we're delivering value, right? I always say, don't sell the product, sell the solution, and then forget about the selling altogether, and we have a win. So, listen, George, you know we could do a whole show on this too. I just believe that people overcomplicate this process and get over worried about things they shouldn't be worried about. You shouldn't be worried about your competition. If you're spending all your time worrying about the competition, guess what? It's going to continue because you're always going to be chasing them because they're not worried about you. So that like I said, that the whole feeling and the whole way that you're going to get people, Scott had a great point, right? The hamburger, right? Your special sauce. And your special sauce could be any number of things. You want to make those people feel like you're not trying to sell them something. You're really giving them a service, providing them a solution for their problem. And we make the mistake as MSPs of trying to sell it all and tell them about all the widgets and gadgets. I mean, I was guilty of it. I used to go into the thing and be like, we could do this, we could do that, we could do that, right? And they're already lost. Someone comes in and talks about the business, right? Hey, Scott, what's your biggest problems? Well, guess what? I have a solution. I'm sure you don't want to hear about all the nerdy shit, but here's how it's going to work and what it's going to do and how it's going to save you. And to me, I think all of that just ties into a mindset. And I know how hard it is to shift a mindset. You know, I'm a Boston guy. I want to pound stuff and just be done with it, but you got to reel yourself in sometimes, right? And find out what they want. What do you want? Okay, guess what? I have a solution for all these problems. These are the boxes my solution checks off. I might not be the cheapest, but I can guarantee you will be the best, and this is why.
Scott, what do you think, buddy?
Well, there were so many points Ken made there. I don't know which one I think about. No, I echo so much of what Ken just said. I don't really have anything else to add in. No offense, but yeah.
None taken. For the first time in my life, I am Matt Lee.
Wow. He might take offense to that.
No,
I don't know.
He'll love it.
All right. So again, just thinking about all the conversations we had in the parking lot. So one of the things that I also heard was, hey, I'm really concerned about, like, all right, pretty much I think people have an idea of how they're going to get through this year, more or less, right? Assuming there's not another shutdown. Fair enough. I think there's a lot of people that are concerned, though, about 2021 and beyond, right? Because there's still this uncertainty, right? People are still locked into their leases on their offices, or, people are worried about head staff counting. We did hear that a lot of people from a financial perspective were kind of on par, right? They were kind of where they thought they were going to be when it was all said and done. There was probably about 3 out of 10 that were like, oh no, we're way ahead of where we thought we would. Right. But, I had Steve Alexander on from MSP Ignite on Tuesday, and he definitely confirmed kind of what we are hearing, though, that project revenue is going down. And that's more or less what we heard on the street as well. So I'm curious now, so we talked about co-manage. Okay. We talked about security first selling. Okay. But like, if the project revenue is gone, and that's roughly 25%, 30% of general monthly revenue or quarterly revenue that comes in, where are these guys going to have to go to plug that hole? Because otherwise you're going to have a gap there, right?
Listen, it's simple in a way. When you're doing this, back when I was doing this, I was like, we want to get to the point where project work is gravy, not a percentage that I have to worry about. So we love the project work, but when the project work came in and it was gravy, it didn't affect my bottom line other than to make it go up. Makes life easy. How do you do that? Co-managed, like you said, security first mentality. You want to make sure that you're always striving for that recurring revenue that's coming in. And when you get down to 25, I would get down to 10% because 10% is manageable. If you can get project, if you could say that if we had 10% project, we're good. But then if you get 25, we're great, right? You got to change the mindset, right? If you can make up 15% of that with co-managed, which I believe you could do more. But I'm saying conservatively, if you did co-manage, you put it out there, you were educating, and you made up 15%, and 10% was project as your goal, I'm going to guess you're probably going to get that 25. And now when that's gravy, when you lose it, it's not a surprise. It doesn't hurt as much. And I know it's easier said than done. I'm not going to sit here and we can't go into how you do that completely, but I'm just saying, start putting some thoughts around the things that you're not doing and think about pivoting. There are guys that that say, oh, I don't ever want to have my help desk being pushed, used for other things, or I don't ever want a help desk. I want to sub that out. If you have the ability to have a help desk that's you and doing it right, and listen, if you have one that works that's subbed out, and they'll allow you to spread that out, that's good too. But you got to start thinking outside the box. During this time, you can't be saying, oh, I've never done that. I don't like that. You got to be able to adjust and see what will work, because you got to make that ground up. Projects were definitely a big part of my business, but it didn't hurt me as bad when they went away, because I always planned for the project to be lower, right? That to be lower. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. When you do that, you're not hurt as much.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I got two different things here. First, there's a lot of these IT vendors that never made the transition to a managed services provider or that MSP. Those businesses that relied on project work, those are the ones that are hurting the most. They may have been starting the conversation about moving to managed or whatever, but those are the ones that are hurting the worst. And those are the ones that I think are going to have the hardest time adapting and growing out of this pandemic. Whereas those that had that managed approach, that was going proactive, was selling that monthly RRR, the MRRs, those are the ones that are in the greatest position. But, so much of the conversation is how there's no project work. And I hear it in almost every conversation, that I'm on, as a sales engineer, but there's projects out there, they're just on hold. You had the beginning of the year, a big Windows operating system went end of life. You had, the Windows, workstation went end of life at the beginning of the year. A lot of those project companies wait till the last minute to push those. So it's not that the project work isn't there, it's that it's on hold. And it's on hold for two reasons. One, you don't know where to put the money as a business owner. But two, you have to wait and have an idea of what this is going to look like at the end of it. And the communication coming from the government has been so lackadaisical that it's really tough to really identify when it's going to be over, what the signals are that it's going to, hey, we're making progress.
No, Scott, we know when it's going to be over. November 5th.
I'm not getting into that. But the reality is, there is no clear indication or what the indicators are of that we're making progress. So as a business owner, you have to protect your assets. I've heard from a lot of MSPs that are downsizing their office space because they've been effective at working from home. You're going to see a lot of commercial property go up for sale or go up for lease. You're going to see a lot of different industries are impacted in different ways. And for an MSP, some of the projects aren't going to happen because they may not need as powerful of a firewall, or they may not need 3 firewalls because they closed their 2 branch offices. But the projects are still there. And again, it comes back to education. The one big thing everyone should be pushing right now is education for the end users. Utilizing a platform, an LMS, there's many of them out there that gives you the capability to resell it to your customers, to teach them the phishing, to teach them the email security, but also a lot of them give you the capability of putting your own learning stuff into it, embedding your own learning videos, your own programs. Pushing education right now is crucial because it's required in a lot of compliance rules. If it's not for you now, it's going to be. And it starts that conversation and it gets you further ingrained in helping that customer. And the projects are coming. It's when the comfort level is there, people know what the next steps look like. Trust me, you're going to get the phone call and your projects team is going to have a list out the wazoo of what is going to happen next.
Oh, you know what? I'm glad Scott said that. Scott, I'm so glad we're connected now, buddy.
I love it.
That was a good point. And also, I should say, all projects have not been halted. Some projects have been expedited because of what's happening. Oh, remember that cloud project we were going to do that we had you on hold for? That's happening now. So to Scott's point, if you were already a mature MSP going in that direction, those projects fired up. Also, if you weren't someone that was doing the training, to Scott's point, if you're not doing the training, you haven't found a way to do the training, those are projects too. Training people on how to get teams running and do more than just the chat. M365 training, doing more than just the mail. Those projects are actually taking off right now. I mean, actually at PAX 8, our team, our pro services team, has seen a gigantic uptick in all of that. Teams, M365. I mean, we just did a boot camp 2 days, yesterday and today and the day before. We had over 800 people on there for 2 days locked into a virtual event because they wanted to learn more about M365, about how to do it, what to do. That's a training, that happened. If you're not doing that for your customers as an MSP, you're missing the boat because someone else will do it. So Scott, great point, because there are a lot of projects that are around education, separate from the stuff we talked about, the education of the MSPs themselves. Because when they were in the downtime, that was the time for them to get smarter and use that and learn how to do more of the stuff. They should also be educating their customers and showing them how to use the tools that are now required to stay in business.
So listen, one of the things that we've actually finally, I think this message is finally getting through. Like this kind of stuff, the face of the company is not a third party. The face of the company needs to be a person that's on the front lines who actually is in the business. And one of the things that the MSPs that we've been running into on the road finally are getting it. They're like, listen, I use outside marketing, but I'm working with them to make sure my content's getting out. Or I'm inviting my customers to the Zoom calls and the Teams calls to do our own community calls, even though they're in different industries, doctors, lawyers, engineers, whatever. So, it's really starting to get interesting because one of the things that we've heard, I feel like it's dead, beating a dead horse, so to say, sales and marketing. Like, I'm finally hearing on the street as we went through this, that it's not about going to hire the first sales guy. It's not about beefing that up. Now, there's a benefit to that. Yeah. And Steve Alexander on the Tuesday's call said, hey, account management, totally need, shouldn't be ignored. But marketing approach sales, if that makes sense, is starting to finally get personal. And that's what's actually working. Am I wrong? You heard a lot of conversation around it.
No, it's not wrong at all. And it all ties back to Scott and I's point about education. It should not be a sale. It should be educational. Hey guys, did you know, blah. And we've seen some personal ones that at the beginning of COVID, I thought, I sent you an email and was like, too soon? But at the same time, they're not wrong. We saw MSPs putting out, hey, by the way, is your IT provider doing this, had a little checklist? If any of these things were not checked, you should call me. Like, wow. And at first I thought, we should be probably helping each other instead of bashing each other. But right now, I think that's a good time. It's a good time because by now, every mature MSP, maturity doesn't mean size, every mature MSP should have this figured out. And if you guys want to go out and market, your marketing points can certainly be, if your guys or girls are not handling it with are these 5 questions being answered? Have you even heard from your MSP during this time? Right? They didn't just some of these MSPs are like, we don't want to bother them. Yep. And I've got that. I've heard people say, I haven't heard from my MSP. Yikes, right? I mean, this is the most important time. And by the way, if you're not reaching out to your customers and saying, how's everything at the house? Is your loved one looking to kick you out? Is your dog kind of freaking out because they're like, hey, this guy's not usually around right now, right? Are those things, just having that personal touch, not trying to sell them anything, that ties into your marketing. That's also going out there and saying, hey, did you guys know this? Did you know that Teams is made easier by this? George, you do this all the time. You send out all these helpful little hints. Oh, did your VoIP system, do you know your voice system could do X? Helpful hints and things like that. That's the marketing we're talking about, not the, ditch this guy Tuesday, marketing. That's right. I don't think that's the way to go ever, especially during a pandemic. So yeah, to your point, we heard a lot of that. People were like, like our friend that got the 1800, or how about Reese in Texas, right? TechVera. He's out there educating. Not only is he getting the partners reaching out, but he's not getting admins. He's getting C-level people watching the damn event, and then he's getting people saying, hey, we want in. And by the way, Reese will be the first person to tell you, he also sees his competition on there and just considers that like a prop to him. Like, that's fine. They're learning from me. At least we're educating the market. Now, think about that. Reese is actually taking this to a level that we're talking about as vendors and partners we want to do. As an MSP, for him to say, I don't care. A better channel is better for all of us. A more educated channel is better for all of us. and he's doing really well, and he's sharing all his stuff out to the world. So I think, yeah, we're seeing it on so many levels, and like what Reese is doing is pretty damn amazing.
I agree. Scott, what do you think, buddy?
You know, I've always had the philosophy of, you know, I'll tell you what I'm doing, but it's going to be very hard for you to replicate what I'm doing. You know, that's really the mentality you have to have with education, especially when you're inviting prospective clients, current clients into that mix, into those education sessions, because it is, you know, it's that. How you implement and how you put together your QBR, you know, for the VCIOs out there watching, you know, it's different for every company and different for every person. Yeah, there's some great templates out there that, you know, will help you get it started, but you have to put your own twist into it, and you have to make it yours. You have to make it your brand, because that's where you stand out. And, you know, that's the education aspect of it. It's that education with the marketing twist that is going to make your MSP stand out over the others.
So, listen, I appreciate you guys checking in. We're going to do a more formal, there's a lot of interviews we did across the tour. You're going to hear from these people directly. There's a lot already posted online. Go to mspinitiative.com/channelstrongtour. You're going to see a bunch of reviews of each city. You're going to see videos of interviews with existing MSPs out there that were able to join us. We probably have another dozen or so of those that still are getting, kind of cut up and put up. And we're going to be recapping other parts of the trip, as we kind of get back home and get acclimated a little bit. But I really honestly want to put a honest to God thank you out to Amy from Acronis, who was with us for the majority of the trip. Paul Reddick, Compliance Group, of course, our man, myth, the legend, Mr. Ken Patterson, the entire line guard team, Eric Pinto, and his also came out from South Solder.
Can't forget Taylor Thorson from Connect Booster.
Connect Booster was rock star.
She was a newbie, and she stepped right in and absolutely killed it. And you just can't. That's something you can't buy. So it was great having Taylor on here. We had a good group of people on here. And the one thing I want to say to anybody that's listening or will listening on the recording is, make sure you guys reach out to these folks. You're listening to people talk and you're listening to them say this stuff. We're saying it for a reason. No one's going to ditch you. I mean, you reach out to any one of these people, they'll help you. And if they can't help you, they'll find someone who can. That's the magic of our community. I just met Scott. I'm definitely calling him up for some stuff. He's got great stuff here, smart person. And I guarantee you he'd be willing to say, yeah, man, whatever you need. So I think that's what we're trying to drive home more than anything is get help. Everybody can add. And Scott made a great point that I use all the time. There is no silver bullet in our industry. It's how you apply it to what you're doing. And just take bits and pieces from what all of us are saying and make your business yours.
Don't hesitate, because I know Ken Patterson's jumping to get on a call with you and your customer and help you out. One last special shout out to Pete from Equilibrium. His team helped us out, kind of making things look kind of pretty on the graphics and marketing. I think our t-shirts look a lot better than what we originally thought they would. So all good. Thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate you guys for following us. Again, we'll be back online Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern. This was recorded. This will be online like everything else we do. We really appreciate you guys for checking in. Have a good one.
See ya.